If death is one of the only guarantees of life, we need to be talking about it more. I'm afraid of death and dying. It's not easy to share, and it's not easy to admit to myself. These are topics that are very tender, and they're not things that we bring up over coffee or when someone asks me, hey, how was your weekend? I'm not going to say, well, I thought about death and dying, as well as impermanence and mortality. And because of that, I felt very anxious and sad. And then I spent a few hours crying, and then I took a nap. I'm not going to say that to someone. And part of that is because we live in a death avoiding and death denying society and culture, which to me is strange because it's unavoidable. And logically, I know that. However, it's still really scary to talk about. I want to find people and spaces to have those conversations with in a respectful and tender and mature way. But even finding those connection points is really tough. What scares me about death and dying, I mean, there's a lot, basically all of it, but I've tried to really break it down and ask myself what my fears are, why I'm afraid of all of that. And the first thing I would say is the dying process itself. I have a lot of questions, and I'm not going to get answers to those questions because I can't ask someone who has died, hey, what did you feel? What was the process like? Tell me everything. It's impossible. So there's a permanent unknown there. I've read and listened to people who have shared near-death experiences, and those have been interesting. I try to approach them with an open mind, and it's not for me to judge if it's true or not, or accurate or whatever. I just listen because I want to, and it's a way of learning. But it doesn't really alleviate my ultimate fear or my fundamental questions of when it is my turn, because we're all dying, we're all aging, we're all getting closer to death. We don't know when that is, which is another thing that scares me. I don't know the time, I don't know the manner, I don't know where, I don't know how. So, but then I ask myself, if I had those answers, like if I knew where, when, how, why, would that make me feel better or more secure or less afraid that I would at least have those answers? And I don't know. Sometimes I think it would help me. Sometimes I think it's fine the way it is. But I still am curious how it feels. What are those last moments like? Do you know that you're dying? What do you feel? How does your body feel in when it is my time? Am I going to be like cognitively alert, but I can't move my body? Or will I just be sleeping or unconscious? Like, I don't know, and I can't know that. So those are some big questions that I have. Along with that, I wonder, is dying painful? Is there a lot of suffering? And like every situation, every death is different, so there's no universal yes, no. But I do wonder, how painful is it gonna be? Will I know that I am dying, or is it just something that'll happen? And I think when people hear death or dying, they automatically say, okay, you need to go talk with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and clearly you have some issues. And it's not that. I'm curious, I'm looking for answers, and I may never get those answers, which makes me more scared and afraid and alone because I won't know. And maybe later in life, I will come to a place of acceptance and peace of the unknown. But right now, I'm really fearful and afraid. I consider myself a spiritual person. I'm not religious, and I don't identify or follow a certain faith or religious practice or religious way of thinking, but I would say I'm spiritual, and I'm still discovering that. I'm going to be doing that for the rest of my life. And when it has come to bringing up death and dying, when I have brought it up to certain people, sometimes I wasn't met with the same interest or curiosity or capability or capacity to hold those feelings. There are a lot of people who are just surviving and they're trying to get by. They're working 60, 70 hours a week. So thinking about death and dying and mortality and the end just aren't on their radar. And I get that and I respect it. There are also other people who have told me, well, you just need to go to church, or you just need to convert to a certain religion, and then you'll have your answer. But that's not really helpful. There are also a lot of religious people that I know and have talked to who have also questions about death and dying, and they are afraid. So I think just because someone practices a certain religion or belongs to a certain faith, it doesn't mean that they are immune to these worries about death and the end. Maybe religion for certain people helps them and gives them this sense of belonging and soothes them, which is good. Death and dying touch upon every aspect of life: social, cultural, economic, financial, and philosophical. And maybe that's why we're so afraid to face it and name it and talk about it, because we don't know where other people stand, and we don't know if other people are going to be able to speak with us about it, or other people may be going through their own grief or their own difficulties related to death and dying. So to bring up such a tender topic maybe isn't appropriate, but I do feel that there are a lot of people who are similar to me. I'm also, well, at the moment single, and I don't know, maybe that'll change. I have no idea. I'm child-free as well, and I know that's not going to change. So a question that I have is, who is going to be there when I die, or when I'm actively dying? I don't know if that's the right word or term. Who's going to care, basically? And I'm not saying that people should have children to have an automatic caretaker or caregiver. I think that's wrong. And that's such a big burden to put on a child or children, that you are only having them so you have someone to take care of you. I don't think that's right. I question, though, is someone going to be there for me? Are people going to remember me like 2, 3, 4 generations in the future? Will people know that I existed, that I was a person, that I had a name and identity and story and life, I have no idea. I guess I won't be around to know, but I I do wonder about that. And related to, I guess, legacy or carrying on, I have questions related to afterlife. And people might call it God, creator, ancestors, spirits, universe, however someone wants to label it. It all works for me. But I ask myself, is there an afterlife? What is after death? Do we go somewhere? And I think that's one of the biggest questions that humans have tried to tackle for thousands of years. What happens after? And I'm not going to like debate or discuss 100% yes, it exists or not. Like, it's not for me to make a universal guarantee or claim. I'm just thinking about it. Is there an afterlife? What does it look like? What happens there? When I have looked and listened to those near-death experiences, people have said, oh, like I saw colors that I've never seen before. And in my mind, I'm like, how does that make sense? How can there be colors that don't exist in this realm? Like, I don't comprehend that. I don't deny it, but my brain doesn't really understand how that can be possible. So, yeah, is there an afterlife? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. And some people, millions of people, will say, yes, there's heaven, there's an afterlife, there's reincarnation, whatever. And some people, millions of people, will say, no, that's it. It's just like the light turns off and it doesn't turn back on. The candle flame, goes out and that's it. But I don't also understand that either. Like, that's it. After this lifetime of resilience and suffering and adulting and sacrifice and working, that's all? There's nothing after it? Like, what was it for? Certain folks have said, well, you don't know or you don't remember what life was like before you were born, and it's the same concept. You don't know what was before you in this realm, in this dimension, in this existence, and so you won't know what's after because you'll be asleep or you'll be dead. That doesn't really help me. In fact, it makes me more nervous because, like, is that it? Really? Nothing else? I hope in the future I can find my people to talk about death and dying with. And it's not to debate or to prove someone right or wrong. I just honestly want a mature and intentional and consistent space to talk with people about death, dying, and concepts related to it, with the purpose of just exploration and holding space and collectively understanding we don't know, we might not ever know, and this is hard, but if we're going to be lost and afraid and disconnected and isolated, let's do all those things, but together. I want to have those conversations. I want to dig deeper and not live the rest of my child-free life in this way. Yes, I go to therapy. Yes, I have a therapist. But there's only so much that can be accomplished through that. space, because that's 1 hour a week, 1 hour every 2 weeks. There's still all those other hours where I do question and think and overthink and overanalyze. So then what? And I don't necessarily need a 100% perfect solution or answers to my questions. I think I'm just looking for my fears and doubts to be, I guess, normalized, and that the space they take up in my head become smaller. I know a lot of people, especially older people I've talked to, they even have told me as I got into my 70s, 80s, and closer to death, I felt more peaceful and I wasn't afraid anymore. So that gives me hope, and it gives me a bit of optimism and encouragement that maybe when you are younger, things feel just so heavy because there's a lot going on. But towards the end of your life, perhaps your perspective changes and you don't fear the inevitable, you just accept it. And I think for me that feels better, but I'm still afraid of death and dying. I have a lot of questions, and I know I'm not the only one though. I'm optimistic I will find people who also get it and are willing to hear me and for me to hear them, and we can be there even if we have differing opinions or thoughts or ideas of what death is and what happens, what doesn't happen. At least we can try to change this death-denying society and culture that we're in, because it's not helping anyone. I guess my goal with posting this is to hold myself accountable, to find people and places where I can gently and tenderly bring this up, and we can ask questions together, we can think together. The goal is not to be right or wrong or to prove someone's theory or belief as correct or incorrect. That's not what I'm looking for. I just want to name my fears with other people, because I know other people feel this way, especially people who are spiritual, not necessarily religious, but they're exploring spirituality and different aspects of that, and folks who are child-free, because so much, I think, of this life experience, this human experience, is always like, oh, you want to teach the next generation certain things, you want to pass things on to your kids. If you buy a house, you don't just buy it for yourself, you buy it for your kids or your grandkids. You invest for your children's education, for your children's future. And almost like this, I exist to help my children, but for those of us who don't want to have children, then what? And of course we can buy things for ourselves and spoil ourselves, but I would love to find a spiritual, child-free group to talk about these things with, because I know they're out there, and I'm gonna challenge myself, starting from when I post this, to at least find someone. It won't be a huge group or a big network, but even if there is one person that I have yet to meet who is ready and interested in talking about these things in a loving way, then I'm really excited. I think it can happen. It's gonna take work, but I'm ready.